Welcome back after a week off. Out of Touch podcast episode number 36. John, Mitchell, and Dustin. We are back, but if you haven't noticed already, I don't feel like I sound like myself, I should say. I feel like I'm a little nasally this evening as we record this on April 9th. And you know what? We're still going to push through, though. I've been feeling a little nasally for the past couple of days as my wife and I just got back from our little Disney trip. And Mitchell, he mentioned right before we got started, he thinks the kids from all the, from Disney might have given me some sickness. I mean, and there's so many people there. I wouldn't put it past that to be the truth, Mitchell.
Yeah, that's the maybe most German-fested place on the planet. You have a million kids running around, wiping their snotty noses on everything, and you're just chasing them around, riding the same rides. But was it fun? Was it worth it?
It was, I got to say, I expected to enjoy myself. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
I love it.
Being an adult at Disney is genuinely a fun experience, especially if you're staying on the property. It truly is kind of like its own little city. But we won't talk too much about that. But between going from the hotel rooms to the buses, to the rides, to the bathrooms, I'm bound to have picked up something, I assume. But
yes.
Dustin, how are you this evening? Hopefully you're not sick as well.
No, I was actually sick. Was it 2 weeks ago, maybe? I don't remember.
You're probably feeling sick after that unfortunate championship performance from Purdue. And I don't mean that as an insult.
I'll tell you what I was sick
Purdue,
of. I was sick of Mitchell's comments on Twitter is what I was sick of.
I was on an absolute tear today. Not that I told you guys in the group chat, I wasn't firing haymakers, but I was very responsive. And I think this is anyone. I get in fights with anyone that's willing on Twitter just because it's so fun. And this was just ripe for me to go and do what I like to do the most. And it's just pick on people when they're down. Because I'm down so often. So finally someone else was down. And it's really not even that down. Like, Purdue's one of the best basketball teams that maybe has ever been assembled. They have great guards. Zach Edey is one of the best players of all time. And unfortunately, they just ran into a juggernaut that was not going to be denied. But I learned, I think a couple episodes ago, we didn't really talk about this specifically, but I thought Purdue fans were a little more rational than Indiana fans.
No.
It is not the case. They are as psycho as us. And that makes
because they get a little taste of the good stuff, and then they just can't get enough. And I don't blame them.
I haven't had the taste of the good stuff in 25 years, and I'm still a psycho.
Correct.
And I think that they're probably the same way. Now that they've got a taste, I think it's going to be even better. I was just absolutely cheering so hard against them. And I said this on Twitter, and we won't talk all about basketball, but the reason that I said it on Twitter is everything that I tweet is just an absolute coping mechanism for me. The fact that people respond makes it way better. Like the tweet I posted yesterday about everybody asking me if I was going to cheer for Purdue because it was good for the state. And then I said something stupid like, I was surprised to find out when the game started, I still wanted them to lose. It got what
does that even mean, though?
Or something crazy.
What does it matter? How is Purdue overall winning the national title? How does any team winning their national title for whatever sport it might be, what does it mean by it being good for the state? It's good for your fan base, but what good overall does it do for the state?
A lot of happy people in the state. I think if I was an unbiased third party, I agree. People are happier. They're in a better mood, no matter where you're at. It's just good. And they're a team of entirely Indiana recruits, except for Zach Edey. Their whole roster is from Indiana. That is mostly what I want for the team that I cheer for. So it is absolutely born out of jealousy, and I can absolutely admit that. I admitted it a couple times on the tweet. The only reason that I posted this, or reason that I feel the way that I feel, is I cheer for Indiana. They make me so mad. and so sad that I just could not have it in my little brain as icing on the cake that Purdue was going to win the national championship. It was one of the worst years of college basketball to watch that I can remember since the early Tom Crean days. And if Purdue would have won it all, I probably would have melted. I would have just ceased to exist. And that was
And
the
Dustin,
whole motive I've ever
now I
been.
want to ask you,
Yeah.
as someone who got to experience their very first Final Four, as a fan of a team being in a Final Four, and then getting to the national championship game, what was that like before they got there? So I guess them winning the Elite Eight and then getting there. I want to know your entire emotional roller coaster as a college basketball fan of a team who made the Final Four for the first time in 40 years, right?
In my lifetime, yes.
In your
For
lifetime.
the first time in my lifetime,
That's
yes.
wild. That's wild.
Right? Because it's not like they were just bad all this time. Like, they've been pretty solid throughout most of my life. And to never get there and to have all that heartbreak, like, I went through, first of all, I scared every pet in the house as I was jumping up and down and nearly hitting my head on the ceiling in that Elite Eight game. And then, like, I went through and I didn't think I would be this way, but I went through and like rewatched videos of like Gene Katie getting the net and Rob Blackman, the way he signed off. And I got like teary eyed. I was emotional about it. I didn't think I would be that way, but I definitely was. And then the NC State game, I was a little bit more, I had a feeling they were going to win that game. So I wasn't quite as crazy during that. And then everything just went out the window on Monday night. Like, I was a lunatic. For most of, about like the 8-minute mark, I was like, all right, they're not going to win because they were down like 16 or 18 and something at that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy watching this team play basketball for 8 more minutes. It wasn't good basketball, but you're never going to see Zach Edey again. You're never going to see this specific team again. So I just enjoyed it for the last 8 minutes. But it was like, I will never forget how I felt when they won that Elite Eight game. That is a feeling I don't know that I've ever had in sports.
That's awesome. I don't know that I've had.
I wish I could have been at like the NFL Combine because my times and measurements would have been so ridiculous if it was after
adrenaline.
Pure adrenaline, baby. That is so awesome. And oh my gosh, I can't. And what's probably cool, it's been like a whole month of just better and better and better, and to build up to this. And I can only use my experience of Indiana losing in the first weekend every year, but when even you win the first game in the NCAA tournament, and I'm not even talking about last year, I'm not talking about any of that. It's just the anticipation from the brackets being released to the first night, that couple of days, it gives me chills just thinking about it. In the emotion, you must have like pure positive adrenaline for a month. You must be exhausted. Like, I cannot imagine how much fun that was.
I mean, it's just crazy. I'd never experienced anything. Because I legitimately had reached a point where like people would say Purdue's got to get to a Final Four, and I was like, the tournament's a crapshoot anymore. Like to me, I was like, just win the Big Ten, beat Indiana regularly, and I'm happy. Like anything in the NCAA tournament is just. So it was such a crazy feeling to actually get to the Final Four. Like I don't know if I can even explain it. It was just like, there were times I was like trying not to cry on Thursday. I'm like, this happened on Sunday. It was so ridiculous. But I mean, I guess that's what sports does to you when you put so much investment in it. And
it's
like,
the best.
I can't, as a fan, I don't feel like I can't. I mean, I've experienced a lot of elation, but it's always been in small little spurts. Because the team that I root for, at least at the collegiate level, I'm not really a big pro sports guy in general.
Yeah.
I'll say I'm a fan of a team, but it's more casually. But with IU, that's where the emotion's always been attached to. And in the major sports, football and basketball,
easy.
They haven't done anything of substance. I'm not blaming you for anything, Mitchell. I'm not blaming you. Your teams are the reason,
there, John. Okay,
Mitchell. Your teams with Kevin Wilson are the reason why I love Indiana football so much. My first exposure to Indiana football was the first year of Kevin Wilson, like first true exposure, like as a fan, old enough to know what's going on.
And you're still a fan after that first season? Good for
Isn't
you.
that wild? 1-11. They were 1-11. I was miserable.
Breed of cat, man.
And here, fun fact too, my first season as an Indiana basketball fan was Tom Crean with 6 wins.
Brett Finkelmeyer.
I was born to be miserable.
Yeah. Well, we
So-
cheer for the wrong team. Everything that Purdue is doing is what we want to do.
Correct.
And that's what makes it so much worse. Bob Knight's team were all just Indiana guys. Oh, look, you win a bunch of national championships like that. Matt Painter builds all Indiana guys and finds an absolute ogre from Toronto. And look, national championship. And gosh, how good is I love, again, Twitter saying Zach Edey just is a foul merchant. He is just an unstoppable force. How good he is. He's so skilled. How can that guy not be the number 1 pick in the draft? Who's going to guard him?
Right.
I don't care who it is. Joel Embiid, not going to stop him. He's so crafty. And the best move of the entire tournament happened in the national championship game early when that big monster from UConn squared up his right hook. He was going for a hook with his right hand, and he went up and under and finished with the left. It was early in the game, and he looked like a 6'7" guy doing it.
Yeah.
And then you remember he's 7'4". He shoots free throws at 80%. I am so happy he's gone. I can't even tell you. I mean, we may never beat Purdue again because I know they got another one in, and apparently they're going to be athletic. I love that your first assumption this morning. So for a little background context,
Yeah,
Dustin tweeted this morning early. It was like 8 o'clock.
it was. I was up. I was up early.
It was early. And he tweets something about the putback dunk that Purdue had in the championship game. And the dunk was insane. Like on its own, insane. And Dustin tweeted that Purdue was going to be, what was it, freaky athletic?
Yeah,
Or
insanely
athletic?
athletic, something like that.
And
Yeah,
I was just curious. I don't follow Purdue recruiting, so I was curious if they had like guys coming in. I'm mostly trying to prepare myself for sadness again next year. And Dustin, like his first initial reaction was fighting, and I love it. It was the Band-Aid had not been ripped off. It was still healing. It was awesome.
I was trying to get back into my normal state of being, and Mitchell's just like, "Are they supposed to be athletic last season?" And the way I read it was in a smart ass tone.
And again,
And I
I'll
just said-
reiterate what I said on Twitter. You absolutely should. Everything that I say most of the time is in that exact tone.
Mitchell abuses his power on
Yes.
Twitter.
Oh God, yeah.
And that's the thing, a
most
lot
the
of
time
people
I'm all
don't
for it,
realize
but
that.
this morning,
Yeah. Except I would never do that to you, Dustin, except only most of the time. I would do that to you. But this morning, and I know it was a weak time. I wouldn't do that to you. Tomorrow, all bets are off. But today,
All right.
you had at least 24 hours of pat you on the back, make sure you're okay.
It
I
does stink
appreciate
because
it.
we'll never know the final layer of elation that could have been experienced by you, Dustin. I don't mean
Well,
to
it
take
would've
away
been-
from what you did experience, but I would have loved to hear if it, as much as I'm glad Purdue didn't win, it would have been interesting to hear just like if they were able to get it done. Beat
I would not have
UConn.
come on this podcast.
I
want
think I
that
would
to
have been crying still.
Where did you watch the games at? I know we're talking a lot of basketball, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about this is good stuff here.
Yeah,
We'll
this is
stay
good
on this
stuff.
if we need to.
Did you just watch the games at home? Did you go to a bar?
That's where you watch the games at.
Yeah. So I got to think about this. I watched
So
Yeah,
you were
so
stoned the whole time. You have no clue. where you were at.
exactly. I can't remember where I was. I watched the first game at home when I was living in Brownsburg. My dad and I went to the second round game against Utah State when they just obliterated them, and so that game has special meaning to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in Brownsburg for the Sweet 16, St. Louis for the Elite Eight, and then St. Louis for the Final Four and National Championship.
Now, speaking of St. Louis, I guess I can go ahead and jump into this. Have you officially moved to St. Louis? Are you
Yep.
there now?
Yep.
What do we
Is that where
think?
that's where you're at this very second. That's where you're doing the show at.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, right now.
What do we think?
What's it? Yeah, what are we thinking?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Amazing. Awesome.
Have you watched the
happy.
Cardinals play yet?
No. Well, so my brother's coming up, and we're gonna go to the Cardinals Braves game because we're Braves fans.
Yeah, isn't that stadium like really cool? Bush Stadium, from what I
I've
understand.
not been in there yet, but
I've
from
walked
the
out.
outside it looks cool.
It's in a very interesting part of town. I think it's fairly close to the Gateway Arch. Like you could
it
walk
is
from the Gateway Arch to is it still Bush Stadium?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can walk there probably within less than 10 minutes. Maybe less than 5 minutes.
I signed up and did a boxing class well, I guess we're recording on Tuesday, so this was Monday, and I'm doing another one on Wednesday. And the nicest compliment I've ever had comes as a 35-year-old, and he's like, "You have pretty quick hands." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm like really good at punching people."
Yeah, I do it a lot.
I'm pretty sure he was just saying that to be nice, like, "Oh, you don't
Get you to
completely
come
suck
back.
at doing this." Yeah. You don't completely suck at doing this, but when you get to be my age and you've not done anything athletic in a long time, then you just take any compliment you can get.
So the kickboxing, are you planning on fighting some people, or are you just staying in shape?
Just regular boxing.
Oh,
just hitting a punching bag. But have the skill to, if somebody wants to size me up in the street, I'll knock them out.
In case you get mugged.
I will not. I will absolutely not. I'll run away the other direction so fast.
At least the guy didn't say you look like you have a strong chin. Like, oh, I bet you've been punched a lot.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's probably the compliment that I would get. Like, you talk a lot of crap. I bet you have a strong chin.
Before we get too far removed from the Purdue stuff, I wanted to ask you.
One guy knocked the punching bag off the rack, and I was like, "I'm gonna stay away from this dude." Like,
oh my gosh, is this like a
heavyweight
fighter?
Awesome,
huh? Is it Mike Tyson?
It might have been. I don't know. Evander Holyfield, perhaps. I don't know. It was insane. So I moved a bag over after that happened. I'm like, I'm not like inadvertently taking a punch from this dude.
Yeah, can you imagine? He just like throws a stray one.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just
feel you.
Most of us catch strays on Twitter. I might almost really catch a stray. Might send me to the mat.
So, Dustin, I was mentioning the Purdue stuff. I feel like I might have asked you this question before, but I don't think it was on camera of any sort. How did you become a Purdue fan? Because in Kentucky, obviously, if you live in Louisville, you're usually a Louisville fan. Most of the rest of the state is Kentucky. With Indiana, I feel like most of the state in the South is IU, and then the West Lafayette, Northern Indiana typically goes toward Notre Dame or Purdue. But I'm curious how you got to be in a Boiler.
So I was going to mention this before we got off the subject. I think Purdue fans, to Mitchell's point, are more snarky because.
Amen. I said that. I didn't say that word to somebody the other day, but I mentioned that.
Another word that started with an S and ended with a Y.
It wasn't that
bad. Because I think most of the state, I would say this. Tell me if this is fair. 70% is Indiana and 30% is Purdue. If you were just to go into about two, it's 70-30. So when Purdue even though Indiana was terrible this year, when you turn on talk radio, it's all Indiana basketball and how bad they are. Purdue doesn't get a lot of credit. So when people just bring up Indiana randomly, Purdue fans have an inferiority complex. Like, I'm not afraid. Like, that is a thing. We get frustrated by that.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Now, I became a Purdue fan because my dad worked in the Lafayette area when I was growing up, as Biscuit makes a guest appearance.
We love Biscuit.
He worked in like Lafayette, West Lafayette. And so we'd get a lot of tickets to football and basketball games. And it just so happened that when I was growing up, it coincided with like going to games, watching Glenn Big Dog Robinson on basketball. We had season tickets when Drew Brees was the quarterback of football. So for most of my life, I mean, I know there have been stretches where football, like when Mitchell was scoring 6 touchdowns a game against Darrell Hazel coach teams.
That helped me a lot. He was the coach.
We had
a lot.
We had a few really terrible basketball teams, but for the most part, like, we've had some really great players in both football and basketball. And so it was just like I was at the game when against Indiana when they clinched to go to the Rose Bowl. Like,
were you at the game when they beat Ohio State to go to the Rose Bowl?
No, I was at the Michigan game though, on the last second field goal.
Okay.
My dad was at the Ohio State game that year.
Okay.
So I just have a lot of fond memories. And so it's always just stuck. It's always just stuck with me. He like I said, he worked in Lafayette, West Lafayette, and we just got tickets. So I
because
didn't go to
Purdue gives you more reasons to be happy, unlike Indiana. And you've
Oh,
laid
fair.
out many things just then that Indiana, especially on the football side, has never experienced.
Again, a ricochet shot for no reason.
Catching strays.
Mitchell, we're in this
Thank God
together.
it's not
We're on
one
the
guy
same
that-
team.
We were talking about how much fun Dustin had going to games, and all of a sudden I don't speak, and I'm catching again.
All it
strays.
does though is I'm so freaking jealous. I just want Indiana.
That's all it is. It's
to do
100%
something.
jealousy.
But-
Purdue fans can Indiana, they chant IU sucks, and IU's like,
Now that's another thing we got to bring up. What I noticed when they were panning over to Mackey Arena, they showed them doing the IU sucks chant. That goes back to the inferiority complex.
Yeah,
There was absolutely zero reason for that chant.
That's their whole deal, and I respect it. If you have something, stick to your guns. It's a stupid chant, but it's their chant. What does Indiana have? Oh,
They don't
because we
say
lose.
Purdue sucks because they don't
I
want to
love
think
how
about
there was
Purdue.
silence.
Yeah,
Here's the thing: Purdue, Indiana fans don't want to acknowledge Purdue because in reality they are the better athletics program right now as a whole.
Who?
Purdue is currently
By miles, at least in the two main sports. Yes.
Yes.
Now we
we're
talk
talking
about
major
other
sports. Obviously, Indiana soccer is a whole nother level of its own.
I don't know anything about track and field. Yeah.
Baseball,
I think,
softball, women's basketball.
I
That's
think that Indiana wins the Governor's Cup
Probably.
every year.
They probably win that frequently.
Yeah.
like every year, and we get nothing out of basketball or football except last year. Don't forget.
Swept.
Don't forget. People.
But now
do
Woodson's
forget.
500 against Purdue. He's 3-3 again. So
Yeah.
now he's got some work to do.
I heard Matt Painter was thinking about leaving.
I did not hear that.
That would
me
never
neither,
happen.
but I wish. Tried to get you.
He'll retire.
No.
Speaking of leaving, I know we're saying the basketball, but it is a big topic. It's John Calipari just up and leaving Kentucky out of nowhere.
I love it.
I say out of nowhere, like it's been a very Kentucky and John Calipari has been a very loveless marriage.
I was just about to say
since the COVID seasons.
Yeah.
They won 9 games, I believe, in 2021 or something like that. And then they had the seasons where they lost to St. Peter's. They had a better year last year, at least in terms of a postseason run. They went to the round of 32. And then this year they lose to Oakland. And so
They had a better run.
finally
They won
came.
one game.
I guess when I say things got better, like you didn't lose to a 14 or a 15 is what I'm getting at.
True.
But
I think I'm going to say something that might annoy some people right now. I think the only fan base that's stupider than the Indiana basketball fan base in the whole country is Kentucky. How stupid are those people? Like you have a guy, all he does is churn out max contract NBA players. Okay, you've had like 3 or 4 years that you didn't win the national championship. Indiana has 5 national championships, and we haven't even sniffed one in 25 years. We're still searching for a guy. You're still searching. You force a guy out. Indiana already did it in Bob Knight. He has some carrot qualities you don't like. And Bob Knight was a little more crazy and choking players, whatever. But you force out this staple of the program. And the program's bigger than the coach, always. But we've been searching for 25 years. You're going to throw away a guy that every year brings in 50 5-star players. You have all the money in the world. Everyone in the NBA respects this guy. When you think NBA, like prepping a player for the NBA, you think about Kentucky first. That's not because of Kentucky. That's because of John Calipari. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen out of a fan base. I can't even imagine. But if it's good for him, go out, get your money, get away from the psychos, go hang out with your friends in Arkansas, be rich, bring some recruits there, and then retire.
That's right. He's friends with the Tyson chicken people. That was part of what got him
Those
to
are
Arkansas.
good friends to have, by the way. Those
free Dino Nuggets.
I was just about to get out of my head, John. I have Dino Nuggets in the freezer right now.
Do you
They're
really?
so good. Maybe that was part of the offer. If that
What
comes
is
out,
it about?
I
So
don't know
on,
if you're
why
white.
the Dino Nuggets? Why are the Dino Nuggets on another level compared to the regular shaped nuggets?
I don't know, but they are. Maybe it's nostalgia.
Maybe.
Probably.
Although
Do
I
you know
think
what I?
nostalgia requires you to like do it and then leave it for a little bit, and it feels good when you
Yes.
come back. I've never stopped.
It's
So
one of
It
those. So
still just always
nostalgia. I've
tastes
noticed
good.
anything that has nostalgia on it. It's one of those things where you can never experience the feeling again. So you romanticize about what it was like, and it's actually not as good in reality to what you've actually put in your head. I feel like I just
This is
said a bunch of nonsense, but I hope that made
this is
sense.
no, this is correct because there's a restaurant in my hometown in Walton, Indiana, and the food is just terrible. I mean, it's god awful, but it's all we had to eat, and so I remember it being good. Like, and so when I go there, I'm like, I don't think it's good, but I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. Tastes like childhood. But everybody that has gone there with me is like, what the hell? How are you not dead? Like, this is awful.
What's the
Tastes
name of the
like
restaurant? We
childhood.
can give him a shout out.
Tastes like
No.
childhood is such a
No.
good. This doesn't taste like anything positive, but it does taste like childhood. So I'm gonna keep eating it.
This tastes
You know what
like
else
I
tastes
needed
like
a
childhood
snack
while we're
before
on
the
the
wrestling practice started.
Totino's pizzas? Those are childhood. And I'd
Yeah,
be
those are
lying if I
fire.
said I didn't eat a couple of those for lunch every week while I'm at home in between shows.
A
Yeah, those
couple
are
of
fun.
times a week.
There's not big.
But
It's
you're
like,
eating-
what's the difference between getting that and like a lean cuisine pizza? And other than the fact that it's not as big or size
Did you
wise,
just
if
eat
that
pizza
makes
every
sense.
day? Is that what we're
No,
getting
I
at
mean, I'm
here?
just comparing pizzas.
Yeah, some nights it's Domino's, some nights it's Little Caesars.
Oh yeah, we're
sometimes
just
it's Lean
sampling the
Cuisine.
Pizza Huts, the Domino's, the Little Caesars,
What
Papa
is your
Murphy's.
favorite? What is your favorite pizza?
Like takeout pizza now. We're going
Well,
away
now
from
you
the
can do any of them. If you think a frozen pizza is better than
Definitely
takeout,
not
then
frozen.
go for it.
I think I've said this before, not on this show, but Pizza King, an Indiana staple, and for some of you, it's Arnie's. I know that there's the weird rivalry. I've never had Arnie's. I've wanted to try it because a lot of people, when I say Pizza King is better, they say Arnie's is.
No, neither one is good, but
I don't
we'll
think
let you have
Pizza
your
King.
opinion.
Yeah, Pizza King doesn't crack the top 20, and I think I only can name 18. Pizza
What's wrong
King.
with you? What's wrong with you, Mitchell?
I'm telling you, your idea is dumb, and you need to change it.
That's
And
what
here's
you
the
need
thing,
to
I
try
guess it's a
different
lot
pizza.
like Dustin, is that it just tastes like childhood.
Yeah, Pizza King. I think last time I went there, I got like massive food poisoning when I was 12.
Well, then that's just a bad experience and probably
changes
one
your outlook.
location.
I don't know.
My grandparents, shout out to my grandparents if you're listening, they got food poisoning at Popeyes once before.
Not
And Popeyes
surprising
still
either.
delicious.
What did they get at Popeyes? Shrimp?
I have no clue. Hey, if you're listening, give us the call at the hotline. You want to let us know how you got food poisoning at Popeyes? I'd be willing for you to tell the story. 502-830-9195. I'm not going to lie. I can't believe I just remembered that phone number.
That was seamless too. Way to go.
That was good.
2 weeks
Well, there
off.
you
He
have
doesn't
it.
miss a beat.
Yes, yeah. Give us that Popeyes food poisoning story if you're listening.
I got food poisoning from Burger King once. It was not pleasant.
Do you guys remember the quad stacker or the BK stacker? I got a quad. It was so gross. They had this special sauce, and if you're listening, get your head out of the gutter, okay? It was not that kind of special sauce. 4 patties. It was the quad stacker. And somehow, when I was in like 7th grade, I would eat this thing like twice a week. And I don't even know why I was doing it. Like, we loved it. Was, if anybody, that's another reason to call in. If you've never tried this thing, I think it was only around for like 6 months because it probably killed people. Gave them like high cholesterol.
The BK stacker?
Heart attacks. Yeah. It was so greasy. It would come in this like box, and you had to have a napkin under the box because there was so much grease. It would like drip outside the box. And I would just eat it
gross.
like it's nothing. That's disgusting. So that's
I know we keep jumping around from fast food. I put this picture up on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. There is a Long John Silver's, or I should say there used to be a Long John Silver's.
Yeah, R.I.P.
in Shepherdsville. And it was It was one of the last Long John Silver's that hadn't been renovated to like the newer buildings. So it was only a matter of time before this one finally shut down. But I drove past it frequently, and I always wondered when their time would finally come. And a couple of days, might have been the day before we left for our vacation, I was over in that area, and I was like, well, there it is. The sign got torn down. Parking lot's empty. Rest in peace, Long John. And their food, the last time I remember eating there, I didn't get food poisoning, but Long John's is one of those places that, I mean, it gives you, I guess we can call it the bubble guts. That's the most PG way to say it without being disgusting about it. And sometimes it turns into the trouble guts, and then you're on the pot for who knows how long.
I was going to ask if you ordered a pizza at Long John Silver.
Oh my God.
I have a confession. I have never once in my life eaten at a Long John Silver's.
You're probably not in the minority. I'm probably in the minority for giving them a shot.
I tried it way back when, but I don't remember it.
I feel like it was really popular growing up.
They had a
It may
cool
have been.
I can't remember
I
what
love fish. I'm a big seafood guy. So like, but fast food fish is hit or miss, and obviously Long John's is the bottom of the barrel.
And the funny thing about fast food seafood is the miss is you're gonna die. You're gonna be hospitalized.
Yeah, it's a big
for
miss.
a while.
Wide miss for sure. Yeah. When you were living in Georgia, did you guys have Captain D's seafood?
Yeah, we did. I never ate there though, but we did.
There was a bunch of them in Charleston. I don't think I ever saw one customer in the parking lot. There was 15 of these restaurants, and I drove past them all the time. Never one person I don't understand how they were still in business.
So you may be a good person to ask this question because you ate Chick-fil-A. When I lived in Georgia, there was 1,000 better fried chicken places or places you could get a better chicken sandwich. I never understood why Chick-fil-A was always, the cars were wrapped around the building 3 times. I'm like, you can go to like a mom and pop store and get a chicken sandwich that tastes 3 times better than Chick-fil-A, and it costs about the same.
Laziness.
Well, that's
fair. It right there. You go and the line is super long at Chick-fil-A. Everyone is super nice to you. You don't have to get out of your car, and it still takes 5 minutes.
And they do have good milkshakes.
I was just about to say, you also have the added benefit of the chocolate shakes that are the perfect texture no matter which Chick-fil-A you go to. I think you go to Chick-fil-A for consistency. We talk about hit or miss on seafood everywhere. Chick-fil-A, it's not going to be the best chicken sandwich you've ever had. It never will. It's really solid chicken sandwich that's going to be exactly the same in Washington State, in Florida, in Maine, and Texas.
That's fair.
I think that's why you go. Especially if you don't live in a place like where I was. Charleston was very, I can't even think of the word. I just had it, but there's a lot of tourists there. So a lot of people that weren't local would only be there for a week. Don't have time to go find a local chicken place that has the best chicken ever, but Chick-fil-A. And I drove past a Chick-fil-A on my way home on Glen McConnell Parkway in Charleston, and there was 400 cars in the parking lot at 8 in the morning all the way till it closed at 10 p.m. or whatever it was. It was crazy. This has been a very food-heavy podcast. I like it.
Remember when Popeyes supposedly won the chicken sandwich wars by coming out with their chicken sandwich, which I do believe, if it comes out right, is still superior to the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich.
Was that a real thing? The chicken sandwich war?
Oh, I don't know if it had a sponsor, but back whenever that sandwich came out, that was the one time, like if you saw Popeyes and Chick-fil-A next to each other, that's when Popeyes finally was briefly winning. But if you noticed, now that that's no longer like the fad, people, like you said, Mitchell, the consistency of going back to Chick-fil-A for the service. And it sounds like we're doing a freaking advertisement for Chick-fil-A. We're not, obviously, but
they don't need our help.
They don't. They don't need anybody's help. I mean, they don't even need Sundays. The only fast food place I know that doesn't open on Sundays.
I want to know the study. Did they do like a taste test for the Popeyes, or did Popeyes just decide in their marketing department, I have an idea. We're the best chicken sandwich, and we're going to tell everybody there was chicken sandwich wars that we won. Was there actually wars?
I don't remember there being a war. You know what I do remember about the Popeyes chicken was like this kid from New York or Brooklyn, Brooklyn, New York or someplace. And he was just standing outside. Maybe it was Buffalo. I don't know, someplace in New York. And he's standing outside. He's like, I'm just standing out here in the freezing cold to get chicken. It's fried chicken. I like
that's
fried
Chick-fil-A.
chicken.
I've seen that video. That's hilarious.
I don't think it's Chick-fil-A. I thought it was the Popeyes.
I know the video you're talking about, but I would have bet money it's Chick-fil-A. But either way, I know what you're talking about.
I would bet a large sum of money it was
Oh,
Popeyes.
now we got
Let's
gambling.
do it. Hey, let's bet right now on the show, and Mitchell can tell us what it is.
We're gonna fill the gap. You look it up. You decide. Look up the video. One of you two, and then we'll just be gap filler. And
you tell a story. I'm gonna find the video.
Okay. What kind of story should I tell?
Tell us more about your Twitter adventures.
Oh, okay. See, now you got me all fired up. So there's this guy. I almost quote tweeted him. Everybody gets so hostile on Twitter so quickly. And I think, speaking of that, I just pulled up my Twitter and got another response to my tweet.
Is this
from
the
Boilers?
I found the video.
At Boilers94 that just says rent free. Like he lives rent free in my head. But he found my tweet. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that works. I got accused of beating up kids today. Boiler grad, Boilers 32. This is that same tweet. Remind me how many bowl games you played in. I think he was talking about Indiana in general, but I just responded with, I played in 2 because I played in 2. And then I think he realized that I was talking about me personally. I don't think he realized that I played at Indiana. And he was like, oh, and how many did you win? Rose Bowl? And have you, as a student athlete, played for the ship? If not, then I'm not sure, as a student athlete, you find any enjoyment beating up kids. So I had to respond, I was with you till the end, but I am anti-beating up kids. I got accused of beating up kids today. Just
why do people say the things they say on Twitter?
I don't understand.
You know what's even funnier is that guy probably was not a student athlete.
No, he definitely realized that he was backed himself into a corner and I had some ammo. So he went back a little bit. But Cran Hanman, if you guys are bored, look up my thread with him. He was calling me some curse words. He's not happy. I kept saying we're the same because we both didn't win the national championship. We're clearly not the same, but we both didn't win. And he lost his mind on me big time. So if you're bored, follow me on Twitter. You'll see some stupid interactions where I'm 100% of the time joking around, unless it's to Dustin right after Purdue loses the national championship. Then I'm serious.
Then it's dead.
All right, here's the video. I have no clue how loud or quiet this is.
This is going to blow some speakers out. I'm really excited.
It might. It very well could, but it's only 16 seconds, and let's figure out what he's talking about.
Well, I'm here in the freezing cold getting free chicken sandwiches because the food tastes great. I mean, it's chicken. It's fried chicken. I like fried chicken.
Well, he didn't really help our little.
No, it doesn't say what Popeyes. It's for? Popeyes did the free chicken sandwich day. That's what blew them up. I think that was their marketing for the chicken sandwich war winner. Is that they were giving away free chicken?
I just wish, and this also obviously isn't the original video, so it doesn't like give me a description.
It's chicken.
Oh well, it's just fried. It's chicken.
It's fried chicken. That's my favorite video from that.
Where do we think he
came? Almost positive that was Popeyes.
What accent is that?
It's definitely New York. I don't know, Buffalo, Brooklyn.
Oh, you mentioned that. He sounds like somebody. The way that he's talking, he sounds like he'd be 50 years older than he actually is.
Yeah, he sounds cold and semi-chunky. He sounds like me talking about food. Ravenous.
That's true. I don't know how to transition out of that, but I also don't want to say, well, there you go.
I think you
wanted
should
to hear
that.
There you go. It's been 2 weeks. We need to hear at least one.
No, because it's gone. It's out of the vernacular. It's out. It's gone
forever.
What was your favorite?
We're trying to get rid of it.
What was your favorite Disney World ride? As you
Favorite
take a drink
Disney
of
World
water?
ride. So how familiar are you? I know you've said didn't you do one of the work study things at Disney? That might be incorrect, but did you do something down in Disney before?
I lived in Orlando.
Okay.
Now-
And I worked at Disney.
So you did work at Disney. What did you do at
Yeah.
Disney?
I didn't do a work study. I just worked at House of Blues in retail. It was when
That's
I was
right.
unemployed in my career field for a couple months.
I'll say
So I
this,
live
the
like
best
20 minutes
ride in
from-
terms of the way that you get immersed into what they are trying to, I guess, portray is the Rise of the Resistance Star Wars ride in Hollywood Studios. And I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I knew going into it, and I shouldn't say knew. I had feelings of this ride going into it that it was way overhyped, like I was going to be disappointed. It's not going to be as good, and that the wait wouldn't be worth it. But without, I guess, giving every little detail of the ride, there's one little portion where after you've gone through like the pre-show and they take you into, I guess, the next holding area before you actually get in the cars for the ride, they put you in this prison cell type of thing. It's not exactly, doesn't exactly look like a typical prison cell, but the characters in the ride, they act like they've just abandoned you in there, and you were in this room with nobody other than the people who are riding with you for a solid 90 seconds. Nothing happens. You're just sitting there and you're wondering if this is even part of the ride. It was a very weird experience. But what happens after that, the next portion of the ride, these, again, real actors, not animatronics or anything. These actors they use whatever room you're in, they kind of saw you out, if you will. They kind of cut a hole in the and a cutting hole sounds so cheap, but I guess like picture like a lightsaber going through the wall and cutting and opening out, and they act like they're here to rescue you, and then they like get you to run out of this room, and then they put you in the cars, and then the actual ride begins. But it's a very cinematic, like they want you to feel like you're in a Star Wars movie. And again, not a big Star Wars fan, but it's cool that with that ride specifically, they have real actors, because most of the rides at Disney, if you've ever been, like you're going through and they have really cool animatronics and that kind of stuff, and it's good eye candy, if you will. This is more of an experience where the people or what you're interacting with is human beings, and they're selling the ride to you instead of the animatronics per se. But hopefully I said that correctly. I'm always self-conscious about how I tell my stories, but because I don't want to give spoilers away if that's something that even pertains to a ride. I mean, with something like this, it kind of is spoilers, I guess, but who knows? It's fun. It's fun. If you're ever down there and you can, and it's not a long wait for that ride. We got lucky. So the ride broke down in the middle of the day, and we were just kind of hanging out in the general area, like, you know what, maybe it'll be back up and running. And we got in line as soon as it opened back up, so we didn't have to wait too long for it.
Nice.
That's risky.
It is a little risky. We waited while it was broke down. We waited for maybe 30 minutes, so it wasn't that long.
Do you think there's ever been a time when one of the actors is just having the worst day ever?
I tell you what, I know. So a lot of Disney's workers, it's a lot like Chick-fil-A. I know it's kind of funny, the parallel here. So like they're always in very good moods. And, that's kind of part of
That's what I'm
they're
saying.
supposed to be. And there's times the people who look the most depressed are the people who work at like the ticket area, like when you're first coming in. Like I remember walking out of Animal Kingdom, and there was this dude who's probably in his 50s or 60s, and he looked like he just hated his life. He was sitting down. He's probably, I don't want to fat shame, but he was a bigger dude. And he's had his hand on his face like this and wasn't making eye contact with anybody. And you could just tell he didn't want to be there. But again, if he was having a bad day, it is what it is.
Oh my god!
Mitchell
I'm
can't
picturing
catch his
someone
breath.
at the Star Wars ride.
Do we gotta cut out the fat shaming? I mean, I know I didn't say anything.
No,
is that
I'm
something
not
we
even
said?
laughing at you. The image of one of those guys cutting you out and just he's having a terrible day, and he's like, he cuts you out. Come on, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here. It's just very funny to me. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know why. I just think the image of a real actor in one of those rides, having the worst day ever, and then eventually just losing it on some people is a very funny thought in my head. I don't know.
tell you, and those people, like, they could abuse their power and just like beat your ass if they wanted to. Like, if they're really not right in the head, they come in there and they legit take you down if they wanted to. Not that anybody would do that.
A lot of trust in the people at Disney. These real actors dressed up in suits, you don't know what they look like. They can just beat you up and then run away. That would be. It's a very funny image.
Imagine, is this part of the ride or what's happening?
John, you're already thinking.
Oh, that guy must be another actor. It's just getting punched in the face. Oh man, that is dumb.
It's got. I will say, I love the bus. All the bus drivers that we had that take you from like resort to park, back to the next area, that kind of thing. They're always really nice. And if you're a bus driver, you've got to be, I feel like, constantly in a good mood because you're traveling, you're transporting sometimes 40 or 50 people in one bus. I mean, and those are people's lives. You can't be driving erratically with, 70, 80 other buses throughout.
This is actually a faster ride than Space Mountain, so buckle up.
My wife just divorced me and I'm 3 shots deep. Buckle up.
There was one night where we went to the downtown area and my wife and me and then the people we were with, we were the only people on the bus. And the bus driver was just having a conversation with us. And then he was bitching about all the regular drivers, about how nobody gets out of the way for the buses.
This is not polite, but it was hilarious to me. When I worked at House of Blues, so I worked there over like the spring to about the fall. And if anybody knows who's been to Florida in the summertime or has lived in Florida, especially in Orlando, it rains every day in the summer. Every day you're going to get a thunderstorm. Sometimes it may last 10 minutes. Sometimes it may last 6 hours and 10 minutes. You don't really know, but you know it's coming at some point. And the funniest thing ever, this is so mean, just the people who had no idea that they planned this entire Disney trip and they're just going to get stormed out every single day in the summer. And when you would tell them that, because I'd offer them, I'd be like, we got ponchos and umbrellas for sale if you need one. And they're like, oh, well, we probably don't need it. It's probably the only day it's going to rain. And I'm like, nope, it's going to rain every single day.
Yeah, I imagine you telling that to somebody on like their first day. It's perfectly sunny because those storms come out of nowhere.
Well, that's usually what it is. It's usually, it's usually the first or last day because when they get there, they don't have time to do anything else. So on their very first day, they're experiencing a thunderstorm of just pouring down. And it's not like light showers. It's pouring down rain.
The heaviest rain. There's puddles. There's rivers flowing on the low parts. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
I remember my first experience with that. I can't remember where we were. We were driving. It was a family vacation. Got a convertible. And I think it was just me and my dad. We're driving on the highway, and my dad's from Miami, so like he should have known this. I think it was my dad. But we're driving on the highway, and it just starts storming out of nowhere. Heaviest, fattest raindrops.
Yep.
When you're driving, so I drive a Jeep sometimes now, and when you are in the rain, it feels like little pellets are hitting you in the face. This was like cannonballs hitting you in the face. And we had to
Florida
pull
rain
over.
is different. It's different, man.
Pull over and wait for this super slow convertible top to come and cover us. And we're just sitting there getting drenched. There was pools in the bottom and we were soaked. And this thing, it was like the person from the sloth, the bank teller. It's just, or from Zootopia. You ever seen that? Yeah, the sloth in Zootopia. So slow. And we just got soaked. I haven't thought about that in forever. That was a good memory. But yeah, I imagine that you had some pretty annoyed customers that just had no clue that this was their next 5 days. They paid thousands of dollars for them and their dumb kids. And they're just going to be soaked.
And that's the thing, like you've got to pick the right time. Yeah. Honestly, the time we went in terms of the amount of people was not ideal. The weather wasn't too bad. It was very nice. It was hot the first couple of days, and then it cooled down for the last few. But the people, because the spring break, that's why we went, because my wife's a teacher and we were on she was on spring break that week. But apparently it's the most common spring break week for the entire country. And so the the people amount was outrageous, but we had a good time. And
when I lived there, I always said, if you want to know how many people are on this planet, just go to Disney for a day, and that's not even 1% of the number of people.
I tell you what, it is wild. It is wild. The amount of I hate to call it a cult, but the amount of different moving parts that entire area has to make each day go as smoothly as possible. Like the bus schedules, the ride maintenance, just everything. And buses aren't even the only way you transport. They have the monorails, they have the ferry boats and stuff.
I want to know what the electric bill is for just like one day. It's got to be like $8 million.
$8 million for a day. I can't even imagine.
I mean, the upkeep of that place with all the parks, I don't know how much money they must be making for that to be worth it. Good for Mr. Disney, you know?
A shout out to Walt, who's in his head like frozen somewhere. Isn't that the whole
he was
rumor?
also very anti-Semitic, so not a huge shout out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
small shout out. We like Disney movies, but pretty bad guy. If you do some research on him, pretty bad guy.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to wrap it up. I don't know if you noticed, but I had to turn my camera off earlier because my nose is starting to run, and you may have heard some sniffs. I've been doing a pretty good job throughout most of this episode of muting my microphone, but it's getting to that time where I'm losing control of it. I guess is the best way to say it.
That's fair.
So we're gonna wrap this thing up. Let's go ahead and get that music rolling. And we're glad to be back. Glad to be back on our little regular schedule. We're actually going to start recording this on a different day, which might be easier for all of us. But we're looking forward to doing this for each and every week. If you want to comment on anything we talked about in this episode, hit that hotline, 502-830-9195. Food poisoning stories. What was the other thing we said? Mitchell, you had something.
I don't know. Just follow me on Twitter so I can interact with you.
Yeah, Mitchell just wants to argue with you on Twitter and probably about
not even argue.
Rational.
Be just really sarcastic, I think. Yeah,
exactly. So
food poisoning. You already said food poisoning. Just end the show. I don't know.
We're knocking some rust off. This is the longest outro of all time. We're still shaking off some rust.
Until next time, we will talk to you next week.